So let's go. In a recent video, we've covered ear candies for breakdowns, and today we're covering even more ear candies for breakdowns to make your breakdown more interesting and essentially your song more interesting as well. But before we begin, let me know over here in the comments if you want me to show you how you can do ear candies for leads or also ear candies for bass lines. Let me know over here in the comments below. Now let's go to the video and let's get started with this video. Let's go. Another really common move in melodic techno is when you go from something really aggressive in your drop to something really chill in your breakdown, as you can listen in the song called All That Matters by Artbot. Listen to the drop over here. And now listen to the breakdown. And yes, it's the same song. And the same thing happened in melodic house if you listen to the song called Aquatic by Nora En Pure. Listen to the drop. Now listen to the breakdown. It's the same melody but with a completely set of new elements in there, and that makes the breakdown even more interesting because it adds a completely new perspective to your breakdown. Of course, you can't move too much away from the original vibe of the song, but this is really cool because it adds a lot of cool new elements and essentially refreshes the experience of the listener in the song. So if you want to try this in your song, for example, instead of using a piano in your drop, now use a string in your break. Instead of using a regular bass line in your drop, now use a drone bass in your break. And that's a way that you can completely change the vibe in your songs. But how else can you have movement to your songs? And that takes us to our next point in this video. Another really cool way to change the vibes in your songs is just by changing the main element while keeping the same progression. Instead of adding a completely new set of elements, you're just changing one new element in your song. And you can listen to this happening in the song called Take the Leap by Masani. Now listen to the breakdown and listen how the leads changes to a new element over there. Now, instead of a VST, now Masani is using a Charvel guitar, as he mentioned in one of my comments over here. And that makes the breakdown a bit more interesting by adding something that's new and something that is fresh and has never been listened before. Again, you're not changing the MIDI, you're just changing one single element and adding this novelty by creating some variation in your elements. And that's really cool to spark some interest in your listener as well. But there's quite an unusual way to keep the interest going in the breakdown of your song, and we're going to cover that in the next point of this video. Adding sidechain to your breakdown is quite an unusual move because we add sidechain in the drop to open space in the bass for the kick, but we don't have any kicks in the breakdown. So why are we adding sidechain in the breakdown? Listen, for example, to the song called Banya by Sultan and Shepard. By keeping the sidechain in there, you can see that they can keep the drive going in the song and you can keep the pumping going in the song. And that's something quite unusual, but at the same time, a really nice move to keep the drive in your song. The ARP is also an amazing element that keeps the energy going, but there's one other element in this breakdown that is really nice, and we're going to talk about it in the next point of this video. Adding an ARP at the start of the breakdown is something that is really cool because it generates a really cool and simple effect, as you can listen over here in the song called Inner Bloom by Rufus the Salt. You can see that right away when the drop ends, they start with an ARP, and that's the first time that this ARP is showing up. And this ARP is there only to fill up the gaps a little bit in the break until something else shows up, like a lead or a vocal, that takes the spotlight of the breakdown, as you can listen in the second 8 bar of this breakdown. After the lead shows up, this ARP becomes a background element, but without it, the start of the breakdown could become a little bit empty and a little bit boring, which could make your listener leave your song. So how else can you add energy and make your start of the breakdown interesting as well? That takes us to our next point in this video. Another really cool way to add a little bit of ambience and make your start of your breakdowns a little bit fuller is by adding some pads or even some vocal shots, as you can listen in the song called For a Feeling by Artbot and Camel Fat. Over there, you can listen to some pads, some delays from the vocals, and even some vocal shots like the and that's really cool because it keeps the interest where otherwise could be a little bit empty. And you can also add some nature effects like birds, waves, as you can listen in the song called Spring Embers by Nor En Pure. You can notice some percussions in there, but there are also some birds in there, and this helps the start of the break become a little bit more interesting and a little bit fuller, and that's something that you can also apply as the break progresses as well. But what if you want to make the development of your breakdown a bit more interesting? And that takes us to our next point in this video. Almost all songs have 4 to the floor pattern, and that essentially is what you're listening right now, but a way to spark some interest in the middle of your breakdown is actually by breaking this pattern over here, as you can listen to this remix by Artie called Hey Now. Instead of having the classic boom, 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 it goes to a boom, 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 boom. And that makes it a bit more different and a bit more interesting because it's never been listened in the song before. And if you want, you can even go a bit more aggressive, as you can listen in this remix by Alpha 9. In the middle of the breakdown, Alpha 9 introduces a full breakbeat breakdown. And it's cool because it's different from the 4 to the floor pattern that we've listened in the drop 1. But when you listen to the drop 2, it goes back to the 4 to the floor, as you can listen over here. Therefore, a way to introduce change in the middle of the breakdown is actually by changing how your percussions come into your breakdown, and that can spark a lot of creativity in your sound. However, when you add percussions in your breakdown, you can make your build-up become a bit more interesting than your drop, and that takes us to our next point in this video. Another cool thing that I see a lot of melodic house songs doing, but also some more aggressive genres like progressive house and also melodic techno doing, is adding a moment of silence before the drop 2. Listen, for example, to this remix of Ben Bomer called Father Ocean. The build-up is really full with a lot of percussions, with a lot of melodies and energy, and then everything just stops. But then it returns into the drop 2, as you can listen over here. With this, notice how he went from a build-up that was really full and really energetic to a drop that was a lot calmer and a lot more empty, but also keeping the drop 2 with a lot of impact and with a lot of energy as well. And the same thing can be done in melodic techno, as you can listen in the song called Age of Love by Artbot. A really aggressive breakdown that goes to a moment of silence, and then it goes back into the pre-drop, as you can listen over here. Dance with me, move your body, your license beat. And this essentially adds a lot of energy to the drop 2. So if you feel that your build-up is too aggressive, consider adding a moment of silence right before the drop, so this way your drop becomes a bit more impacting and a bit more energetic as well. Now, if you haven't seen our first video on ear candies for breakdown, you can see this video over here, or if you want to check ear candies for drops, you can check these videos over here. And I hope you liked this video, and I hope to see you in the next Abstrakt video next week. Ciao.